It's the first game of the 2024 Six Nations competition. France versus Ireland in Marseille. The game's just finished minutes ago, and this is my full review of that game. Hello and welcome to Inside Rugby. My name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living in Mexico, and I've just finished watching that great game between Ireland and France that kicked off this year's Six Nations competition. I'm going to go through the game in some detail right now and give you my thoughts about what's just happened. Well, much anticipated this game. Two teams that were beaten in the quarterfinals of last year's Rugby World Cup, and both coming out here with a number of changes and looking to prove something, I think, as we start off this season in the Six Nation competition. It's always very interesting to find out what teams hit the ground running and actually have some kind of combination and momentum behind them. You can tell a lot what's been happening on the training ground when you watch these first matches in the competition. Now, if you take a look at my community poll on my channel here, you'll see that 55% of you thought that France were going to win this game. But no doubt, based on a lot of the comments after I did the preview video, that a lot of people thought it was going to be very close, myself included, although I was leaning on the side of France to win this game. Now, the game was played in Marseille in good conditions, and Carl Dixon from the UK was the referee. Well, as the game got underway, it was France that got on the attack first and started to play on the open side down the right-hand side of the field and attacked the Irish line, but the Irish defence on that occasion was very, very good. Ireland got the ball back and started heading back into the French territory, and soon they were on attack themselves. So Ireland got into an attacking position, and France were offside, and a penalty ensued to Ireland, and it was Jack Crowley's first opportunity to have a kick for goal, 34 metres out right in front of the post, and he slotted it over. So Ireland were up 3-0 after just 5 minutes of play. It was very interesting for me. I was watching Jack Crowley very closely in this game. A lot of pressure on him, taking over from Johnny Sexton, of course, so it's going to be interesting. Now, what became very apparent in those first early minutes, in the first 10 minutes of this game, was that the Irish back row, as I had suggested they would do, were causing havoc against the French. They were getting in there and disrupting the breakdown all the time. It was Peter O'Mahony leading that. Josh van der Fleer was in there as well as Caelan Doris. And we also saw McCarthy in there as well, doing some fantastic work early on. And I thought this set the scene very early in the game for Ireland to have dominance in that breakdown situation. But unfortunately for France, just around that 10-minute mark, we had Willem say, the lock for France, get into a bad position when he went in for a tackle. He hit the head, and he was given the yellow card and sent off. And that's exactly what we didn't want to happen in this game, from a purist point of view and a spectacle for the game. So France down to 14 men. Ireland were having the ascendancy at that stage and were continuing to press that advantage home, but France couldn't afford to be down to 14 men in this game at all. In the first 15 minutes of the game, it was Ireland really dominating. They looked more creative when France did get the opportunity to get ball in hand. They looked a little bit disorganised, and many of us were thinking, how much was Dupont going to be missing from this French team? And it looked like that right from the start, didn't it? They looked like France were leaderless around the ground, and I'm not having a go at Aldrit here. I think that he's a great leader and he's going to grow into a great captain. But when you have a general and a maestro like Dupont playing at number 9, it brings some cohesion to this French team, which I think they really, really need to be at their best. It just wasn't happening in that first 15 minutes of play. So Ireland really dominated the first 15 minutes. They had 3-0 on the scoreboard, and it was looking good for them as the game continued. But it was in the 16th minute of play that Ireland got a series of phases together, went deep into French territory. They were probing. Bundy Aki, that man that I talked about in the preview video, was instrumental in setting up a couple of good hits up the field. And then he was also instrumental in doing a brilliant offload to Gibson Park, who was on his left-hand side. And Gibson Park looked up in front of him, a bit of a shock, and saw that there was no one there, and he took off to score the try. So Ireland were able to capitalise on the dominance they were getting in that first 16 minutes of play. Jack Crowley got the conversion over straight away, and before we knew it, it was Ireland out to 10 points to 0. By the time Willemse came back on the field for France, they had just lost that 7 points in the time that he was off the field. And it was Ireland though that was continuing to build the momentum, and some of the things that I saw that were looking really good was the way McCarthy and the rest of the Irish forwards were going. They were really hungry in this game. You could see that they were in there motivated and high energy in everything that they were doing, and it was this pressure that was leading to France being caught unawares in different times. You saw the ball spill out the back of the French maul at times, and whoever picked up the ball, they didn't really know where to go and what to do with it. And again, this is the factor of Dupont really missing from this team, I believed. But it was some good things happening on the Irish side. When the French did get the ball down, they used a couple of strategic kicks to try and turn Ireland around. James Lowe was the man nominated to go back and make sure he used that great left foot that he's got to clear the ball away for Ireland from within their 22, and he did that on a couple of occasions in the first 20 minutes of the game. Just to clarify the dominance that Ireland were having in that first 20 minutes, France made 47 tackles compared to Ireland's 16, and that really told the story, I think, of that first 20 minutes of the game. It was a lot of Irish pressure on France, and France were going to get very tired very quickly because they were down to 14 men. Now in the 22nd minute of the game, Ireland went close again. A rolling maul went close to the line. Van der Fleer was over the line, but the referee determined that he had been held up, and as a result of that, actually France came away with a penalty. They cleared it from their line and went back downfield. However, it didn't last long because Ireland were awarded a penalty just a minute later, and Crowley had an opportunity to kick Ireland way out in front by 13 points to 0. Unfortunately, he pushed this one just wide of the post. A little bit against the run of play at that stage. In the 26 minutes, France got a penalty that was kickable for Ramos. He stood up, and as I had also mentioned in my preview video, this guy is just a points collecting machine, and he slotted over the first penalty attempt for France on this particular day. 10 points to 3, Ireland led after 26 minutes, and I still felt that Ireland really had control of this game. They were playing very well. And by the 27th minute mark of the game, we'd had 10 lineouts, and Ireland had won those 7-3. And the thing I looked about the French lineout was it looked a little bit fragile for me. They weren't throwing very well. They were always being competed against by Ireland, and we saw Byrne and we saw McCarthy getting up there and trying to really disrupt the French lineout, and it was working. So we didn't see any variation. I was surprised that France didn't try and throw in some kind of either short ball into the line out or going long over the back to try and compete with that. What they did was they kept throwing it into the middle of the line out, and Ireland kept competing for that ball. So I thought that the French were not playing well when it came to using their intelligence around the line out play up until that stage of the game. In the 29th minute was another Irish raid towards the French line. That's all I can really say. The ball came out, and a little flip pass to Ty Byrne, who was running through a great gap. He went straight to the line, basically untouched by the French defence, and it was a very, very good try by Ireland. They definitely deserved it at that stage of the game as well, as they were applying more and more pressure to France. This didn't look like a French team that played so well in the quarterfinals of the Rugby World Cup. They really seemed to be struggling. But a lot of it had to do with the pressure that Ireland were putting on them, and we have to give Ireland the plaudits for that because they were doing a very, very good job, particularly in the forwards. And I'd mentioned in the preview video that I thought the big French forwards were going to take it to Ireland in this game. But what I didn't count on was the speed of the Irish forwards, and that really showed in the first 30 minutes of the game. So Byrne scores a fantastic try, Crowley gets the conversion, and by the 30-minute mark of the game, we have Ireland out to 17 points to 3. The crowd are not in it at this stage, and there's not a lot of singing going on from the French section of the crowd, although I did hear the Irish fans starting to light up a bit. However, 1 minute later, it was a disaster for France, and it was that man again, the lock of Willemse, who got a second yellow card, and Carl Dixon had no other reason than to give him a red card and send him from the field for the rest of the game. Very, very unfortunate for France, and also very unfortunate from a rugby spectacle. I think we have to do something about this red card situation. A lot of you have made comments in previous videos that I've made that we need to keep 15 players on the field somehow, and for them to be sanctioned, suspended or whatever and dealt with after the game, because it is ruining the game. And we had a situation here where France were going to have to play the remainder of this game with at least 14 men, and we still had 49 minutes to go in this game, so it was really putting more and more pressure on France. Ireland were dominating, they were on top, but again, this red card situation doesn't set up for a good spectacle in the game. Tell me what you think in the comments about the red card. Not whether it was warranted or not, tell me whether or not you think that we need to change this process so we make sure that all teams have an opportunity of being competitive throughout the entire game. And then, as is quite often the case of a game of rugby, when a player gets sent off, it seems to inspire the team that lost that player, and France for the last 5 minutes of the first half came to life. And they started running the ball, they started putting several phases together, they started breaking through the Irish line. And for a few minutes there, they looked like a different team. They looked like the team that we'd seen at the Rugby World Cup, and they seem as though they were going to be competitive in this particular game. But that last 5 minutes of the first half, I thought France played exceptionally well. They showed that spontaneity that we love from French teams. They ran the ball from side to side. They put in some trick passes. And it was in that last few seconds of the first half that France did break through. The ball came out to Damien Penaud. He found himself more or less at an inside centre position, but more importantly, he was in a gap. He had about 10 metres to run to the line, and there's no one in World Rugby stopping Damien Penaud from scoring from there. So we went from 17 points to 3 with a few seconds to go in the first half to 17 points to 8. Thomas Ramos got the conversion over, and all of a sudden at half time we're at 17 points to 10. A little bit flattering for France, I thought, because they didn't play very well for 35 minutes of that first half. Ireland definitely came out of the gate better. I was impressed with Ireland right across the field. I thought the combination between Gibson Park and Crowley was working well. I thought they did really well in that first half and absolutely deserved the lead. But it was built on the forwards and what the forwards were doing, and McCarthy was a standout by half time. I thought he was playing absolutely exceptional, as were the rest of the forwards, and the scrums were going a little bit messy, but in Ireland's favour. And of course, without Willemse on the field, France were always going to struggle in that capacity. So half time, it was 17 points to 10. The score probably flattered France a little bit more, and I'm sure Andy Farrell, when he went into the sheds at half time with the boys, said all we've got to do is keep going like you were in the first half, because I thought either the floodgates were going to open for Ireland in the second half, France were going to tire off, and if Ireland were going to be open to any points, it was going to be a spontaneous runaway sort of try. I thought that was the only way that the French were going to get through the Irish defence, because the defence in that first half was very good as well. They seemed to be covering very well on the inside centres. They were looking for those French big forwards running at them, and they were able to bring them down and then get Omani and Van der Fleer and Doris in there quickly to try and disrupt the breakdown and to win the ball back for Ireland. On the side of the fence, Fabien Gaultier, I think, would have been fairly disappointed with his team at half-time. Discipline let them down in a number of areas, not just Willemse's red card, but also a couple of penalties that they gave away, which gave Ireland the opportunity to get territory and push themselves back down the field. This seems to be a French team that wants to open up the ball and run the ball at every opportunity, but in the first half we didn't see any forward strength or dominance to try and give them a platform. I said in my preview video that I thought France only had to win 30 or 40% of the ball to have a good go in this game. The problem was the Irish defence was very good in that first half, and it stopped them from getting any major territory gains except for that last 5 minutes of the first half. So a great first half by Ireland. They deserved the lead. They probably deserved a bigger lead, but France, to their credit, came back and took some scraps at the end. 17-10 at half time. Just 2 minutes into the second half and a crucial situation occurred. France had an opportunity of penalty. It was right out in front, although it was about 34 or 35 metres out, and Thomas Ramos does something I've hardly ever seen him do, miss a kick at goal, pushed it just to the right, and that would have brought France back to 17 points to 13. and I thought that would have been really crucial for the state of this game. It would have given those French forwards some belief going into the beginning of the second half that they'd actually scored some points early on. They'd got the score back to within 4 points, but in fact it didn't go over and France missed that wonderful opportunity. And then, as often is the case in these sorts of moments, just 3 minutes later in the 45th minute of the game, Ireland pushed down and scored a fantastic try through Nash. Yes, Mac Hansen's replacement for this game went in and scored a brilliant try for Ireland. So France had missed out on that penalty opportunity, and all of a sudden Ireland got back on the scoreboard with a good try. So they were out to 22 points to 10 with the conversion kick from Crowley to come. Crowley got the conversion and we saw the score then go out to 24 points to 10. I was feeling at this stage that this game could really get away from France if Ireland were first to score next, and they had to make sure France to try and get some points on the board. That was the only thing that was going to keep them in this game particularly. But France weren't finished yet, and they went back on to attack into the Irish half, and they did some really good penetrating runs towards the Irish line. It set up a good opportunity for a rolling maul to go close to the line, and that huge lockman Gabrielises went over for a try. Had to have a long look on the TMO at this one. It seemed as though he just got his hand reached out, got the ball right on the line, and the referee called an on-field try, and the TMO couldn't find any reason to overturn that try. So just when France needed it in the 53rd minute, they came back with a try. There's quite a lot going on as Thomas Ramos was coming up to hit the conversion for that particular try. He got it over, so it's 24 points to 17 in favour of Ireland. But during that time of adjudication around the try, the TMO saw something off the board. Peter O'Mahony had made an infringement and was consequently given a yellow card. So he went off the field basically as the try conversion was being attempted. So we saw both teams down to 14 men. And I thought, well, this could be interesting now. France had got back a little bit on the scoreboard. Let's see what they can both do with 14 men on the field. Fabien Gaultier pulled the ripcord for the reserves to come on, and we saw that massive boy Tuolangi come on and make his debut for France. It was a massive moment in the very first scrum that he and the replacement forwards came on. They just pushed Ireland off the ball, and it was quite an incredible moment in the game. I thought it was a very dominating scrum indeed. From that scrum they earned a penalty, and France were able to clear their line because they were close down in their own territory at that particular stage of the game. The game went into a bit of an ebb and flow around that 60-minute mark, and I thought, right, the team that next score is probably going to have the best chance to win this game, because it was going to be a real opportunity for France and the crowd to get back into it if they were to score next. But that wasn't the case, and in the 62nd minute we saw a fantastic try by Ireland. A penalty kick into the corner, 5-metre line out ensued, and from that we got a rolling maul, and Dan Sheehan went over for a fantastic try for Ireland. So that was a great opportunity for them to kick ahead, 29 points to 17. Crowley got the conversion over, 31 points to 17, and France were in trouble with still 20 minutes to go or thereabouts on the clock. In the 67th minute we saw McCarthy go off and be replaced by Ryan for Ireland. I thought McCarthy, I think he ended up with the man of the match, but he had a fantastic game. Let's say I give him my man of the match award anyway. I thought he played very well indeed, and I think Andy Farrell and the rest of the crew are going to be very happy with seeing McCarthy playing in this way. He's really a good player, and he's going to be around for many years. So it was a great display for him. He earned the rest for sure after that 67th minute mark. By bringing Ryan on, the Irish, I felt, didn't lose anything at all in the forwards, and their forwards were having a very good day. Around the 17-minute mark, Biel Biarri was on the field and starting to make his presence felt. He's a very elusive runner. The ball went out to him a couple of times. He danced down the touchline, but the Irish defence held strong, and he wasn't able to get a trick. I don't know why Biel Biarri didn't start this game. It was one of those selections from me that Gaultier had made a bit of a mistake on. I like this young guy. He's a game changer. He can win a game for you, so I guess bringing him on late in the game was also to see whether he could have an impact, and he did in those first few minutes when he came on the field. So at 31-17 with just 9 minutes to go, there wasn't any way France were going to get back into this game. They were tiring visibly on the field, as both teams were actually, and I think that's something that's evident also in the first round of games. We'll have to watch that for the rest of the matches this weekend. but I thought both teams were starting to tire in that last 10 minutes, and let's face it, it's the first game of the season and both these teams were giving it their all throughout this game. There was a lot of running in this game and a lot of different phases of play from one end of the field to the other, so I'm sure the boys were pulling in the big breaths towards the end of the game. But in the 77th minute of the game, the Irish were on attack once again down deep in the French territory, and it was that man Ronan Callagher who come on as a replacement who got a try for Ireland in the dying minutes of the game, and that basically wrapped it up. Try on the back of those Irish forwards, and even though they brought on their replacements, they were still taking it to France and they looked very, very good. So the impact off the bench was good for Ireland this weekend for sure. 36-17 with the kick to come. Crowley got the kick over, 38 points to 17, and that was the final score in this, the first game of the 2024 Six Nations between France and Ireland, played in Marseille. Now, I thought Ireland were really good throughout this game. It was probably only that 5 minutes at the back of the first half where France got a roll on, and they fully deserved that try, I thought, to Damien Penaud. But it was the Irish forwards that I thought played superior in this game. They were absolutely brilliant across the field. The back three, as I had mentioned a number of times in this video, had done the job and did really, really well in this game. They were well led by Peter O'Mahony when he was on the field. I saw good leadership there. The forwards, though, were very energised and motivated to go forward for the entire game, and with standouts like McCarthy and Doris and Van der Fleer and O'Mahony, this Irish team has really set up a great opportunity to go all the way through this Six Nations tournament without being beaten. In fact, it's going to be hard to beat against them now, I think, after this particular win in France. I think it was an outstanding performance. On the French side, disappointing. Didn't see that French cohesion, that when they get the ball going, they can score fantastic tries. We saw a couple of glimpses of that, but it was the Irish defence that was too good for them today, and it kept them from playing that particular game. And Aki was just as good in defence today as he usually is in attack, although he was slipping a few passes as well when he was on attack. He had a very, very good game, even though he didn't have that superstar level game today. I thought he was doing a lot of good things behind the scene, and also setting up obviously the try for Gibson Park. Ireland have got Italy up next, so they're going to have a few extra days off because this game was played on Friday night, and I think word out of the shed so far is that there's no major injuries to any of the Irish players, so they'll be happy about that. And Andy Farrell can now sit down and get these guys to watch the Italy versus England game tomorrow and get them to look at what they're going to face with Italy next weekend. It's going to be a very, very good game for Ireland, I'm sure, against Italy. France a bit disappointing. I think Fabien Gaultier needs to go away and look at a couple of these positional, maybe some positional changes. I think Bielbieri for me should start in this French team. We didn't see a lot of Dante doing his big runs today in the midfield, which is a little bit disappointing. And for me, Mofana didn't work on the wing as much as we'd hoped him to. Ramos was good at the back. He missed a kick, but he missed a kick at a vital time. But he got the rest of the penalties over when needed. A simple one for me today. The Irish were too good across the park. They were too good in the forwards going forward in the offensive stage, and they were too good in the forwards in defence. They were also too good in the backs on the defensive side, and I like the way, from a strategic kicking point of view, that James Lowe slots into that long raking kick from within inside their own 22. Jack Crowley's got a bit of work, but I'm sure as he starts to build confidence, and after that win now, they can go on to that Italy game, and I think that's going to give Crowley a little bit of an opportunity to be a little bit more relaxed against Italy, and we might see him play a better game. But I'd like to hear from all the Irish viewers of this episode. Tell me what you thought of Crowley's performance today. Okay, well, that's my summary of the first game of the Six Nations in 2024. Would love to hear your comments, whether you're from France, whether you're from Ireland, if you're a rugby fan from across the world. Let me know what you thought of the game. Well, there we go for the first game of the Six Nations in 2024. And as the sun starts to go down here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico, I'm going to go and get myself some dinner and get ready for tomorrow's games. We've got Italy against England in Rome, and then we've got Wales against Scotland at Cardiff at the Principality Stadium. Going to be two cracking games, I'm sure, and you're going to be able to follow my reviews right here on Inside Rugby with Mark. So don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you can, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you all again tomorrow in the next videos. Until then, stay safe and stay well. Adios from now, from Mexico.